2024, the Major John Leroy Haynes Florida Veterans History Program was created to collect and preserve the stories and experiences of Florida's veterans and to recognize the state of Florida's military contribution throughout our nation's history. Through recorded interviews, the Florida Veterans History Program Oral History Collection acts as a living archive of first-hand accounts to capture the details of military service and the voices, memories, and reflections of the Floridians who served. The Major John Leroy Haynes Florida Veterans History Program is operated by the Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture's Florida Folklife Program. Together, we are proud to ensure that Florida's military history is preserved, honored, and shared. My name is Julian Duncan with the Florida Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture, Florida Folklife Program. Today is February 11th, 2025, and I'm interviewing Jimmy Mosconis in Apalachicola, Florida. This interview is being conducted for the Major John Leroy Haynes Florida Veterans History Program and will additionally be submitted to the Library of Congress Veterans History Projects. Good afternoon, Mr. Mosconis.
Hey.
Could you start by telling us your full name and when you were born and where?
Yeah, Jimmy George Mosconis. I was born in Apalachicola and been here all my life except for a couple of years in the Army.
All right. What year were you born, if you don't mind me asking?
March 1944.
1944. Well, tell me a little bit about growing up.
Just small town. Growing up, I knew everybody's car. I could see a car and tell you who it belonged to. And what's amazing now is the town don't have any young people in it anymore. But used to, I knew everybody's house, who was there, the kids, my schoolmates, so forth, and what kind of car they had. But it's totally changed in the last 60 years, whatever.
What about your family? Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a couple of sisters. I had a brother. He died. He was in the Army. He was in Germany. They wouldn't send him to Vietnam because they just didn't do it back then. They'd send brothers at the same time to Vietnam normally. And but he was in Germany during that time. And my sisters, one sister lives here, and the other one lives in Tallahassee. The one that lives here works for me actually on the weekends in my restaurant here, cooking breakfast. She's been with me a long time. She's a good one.
What did your parents do?
I'm sorry.
What were your parents like? What did they do, and what were they like?
My dad was a commercial fisherman and a shrimper, and as a matter of fact, a little story about the war, World War II. He and his brother and my granddaddy, all three of them were out fishing about 25, 30 miles offshore. And when this boat, this oil tanker called the Empire Micah, was torpedoed by a German U-boat, and they were offshore from when it happened. And it's kind of patriotic. But anyway, after they got back in, my daddy joined the Navy, and my uncle joined the Navy, and they got themselves into World War II. That was in 1942, and then my granddad was like a what do you call it, a coastal watcher, watching for possible enemy ships, and believe it or not, World War II was pretty close to here. Well, like I said, Empire Michael was only 25 miles offshore when they got blasted. Anyway.
So you came from a military family, it sounds like. Did that affect your decision to join the Army?
No, Uncle Sam decided for me. I did not want to go, but I went, and I sure wasn't going to go to Canada or Mexico or somewhere like that for asylum. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't in the cards for me to do that. My family had a prior military history, and I felt like it was my obligation to go. I remember going on my way to Vietnam, talking to one of the stewardesses, and I said, I just feel like I feel like I'm patriotic toward all these people went before me in World War II in Korea, and it just felt like it's my duty to go. I don't have any other way of putting it than that.
Well, what was the? How did it feel seeing that letter in the mail? The when you found out you're being drafted?
Uh, I was a little shocked, but I had no idea that my life had changed so much. I mean, from being a kind of a free spirited young person, and then going and getting drafted, it's a big life changer.
Hmm. That's interesting. So
a big life changer.
Yeah. So how was that adjustment to military life?
I'm sorry.
Can you talk a little more about that adjustment to military life?
Well, it took me a little while, but I adjusted pretty quickly, and I was in pretty good shape physically, being around here and fishing and on the water and going to the beach and all this kind of stuff. I was in pretty good shape, but those fellas that they had gotten drafted, they were overweight, were obese. They had a tough time. I mean, they had a hard time, but I managed to get through. I mean, I did good in athletics and so forth, and it's but I don't know.
Where'd they send you for basic training?
I'm sorry.
Where'd you go to basic training?
Fort Benning, Georgia, for basic training, and then from there to Fort Polk, Louisiana, for AIT, and then from there, I was chosen to go to NCO school in Fort Benning, and I went from there to back to Fort Benning, and did that for 3 months, and then went to OJT, on the job training, in an AIT outfit in Alabama, and then from there to Vietnam. So basically, the first whole year I was in the military, I was in training, and then the next year I was in Vietnam.
What year was this that you went in training?
68 and 69.
Okay. So you went to Vietnam in 1969?
68.
Oh, about 68. Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha. So in Vietnam, you said you'd been to NCO school, and what was your role in Vietnam as an NCO?
I was a
special officer.
A staff sergeant, E6, and and I was a platoon sergeant in Vietnam, and then for the first part of my tour there, in the last part, because it had such shortage of rank and the people in high ranking, that I was like a platoon leader. I was a lieutenant's job, even though I was a sergeant.
But it's a lot of responsibility for being
due
to the military.
It's quite a bit. But to give you an example, at one time, at one point in time, I can't remember what month it was, but I was the ranking NCO in the company, and except for the first sergeant. He was a career guy, and he'd been in the Army for a long time. But we were that short of position, so to speak, rank, that it was a real problem. There was a real drain of the Army, especially during Vietnam. There was a lot of the guys had been over there 2 times, and they got orders for the 3rd time. They said, "I'm not going," and I'm getting out. And they'd been in the Army 12, 15 years. And there was a real shortage of rank because of that. Anyway.
What did your day to day look like? What kind of company were you in? What MOSs were you working with?
It was Leb Bravo MOS infantry. We just stay out in the woods like a bunch of dogs to put it mildly, and but we literally just lived like a bunch of hoodlums out in the bush in the jungle. It was kind of crazy. Looking back on it, the only way you could do that is you got to be young, you got to be in your 20s, and to put up with it, because it was pretty tough.
How did I'd imagine there's a lot of waiting around and then a lot of stuff happening really fast.
That's right. There's a lot of the danger about in a combat situation was so much lulls, so much time that nothing happened, and then people would tend to get lax and you get caught off guard, and somebody get hurt or killed. And I can remember, and I was responsible for that myself. Happened to me. I mean, I was the only I was the only guy. Where we were was a lot of rivers and water, and I was the only person that could run a boat. I was the only person that had any experience of running a boat, and we had a it was a fiberglass Monarch. I think was the name of it. It was like a 20-foot boat with a 25 horsepower motor on it, and I was running down up the river one morning, and I didn't even have my rifle, didn't even have my M16 with me, and just luckily nothing happened. But I got back, I thought, man, you just taking a chance of going somewhere like that without being armed, and that's that's where the likeness and it just sets in and get fear and get people hurt, because it wasn't like in the movies. I mean, it wasn't like every day was shooting and fire, all that kind of stuff. It was just now and then.
What was a typical day like?
Typical day was, I can remember real vividly waking up in the mornings and wondering what was the day going to be like, because every day was different. Every day was different. I mean, it was always different. Even though there was a lot of boredom and nothing going on, but it was different. Every day was different. It was it's hard to convey that, but I used to wonder what's going to happen today. Will somebody I know get killed? Somebody I know get hurt? Will I get killed, or will I get hurt? And it's just something you just dealt with every day. I mean, you just thought about it every day. In my case, and I wondered about this, what kind of effects it would have on me physically, was adrenaline. You've heard of adrenaline high? Well, trust me, there's a lot to that, because I stayed on adrenaline high literally for 12 months. And as a result of that, and didn't eat very much, and I like to eat. But
you think it hurt to sleep?
No, because I was usually so tired, and where our time went over there, that the days about, it's close to the equator, and the time was like 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of dark, and usually by the time we got bedded down for the night, it would be probably 6 o'clock. And so we'd actually go to sleep at 6 o'clock, or just 5 the next morning, whatever. And it's a really strange part of the world from what we're used to in North Florida. When the sun goes down, it's just a few minutes it gets dark, and when it's starting to come up in the mornings, it gets light, and bam, it is light all of a sudden. I mean, it's really weird.
Yeah,
Really different than this part of the world.
where in Vietnam were you? What part?
Around close to Saigon. It's called the Third Corps. I was in the Third Corps section. They had it broken down to like 4 or 5 corps, 1 through 4, whatever. And I was in number 3, and that was our job. Our mission was to provide security around Saigon, and mostly north of Saigon and east of Saigon, and sometimes south of Saigon. But that was our job. It was security for Saigon, and of course Saigon's a big area, and we were 25, 30 miles from Saigon, actually out the boondocks, out in the jungle.
What unit were you with doing that?
I'm sorry.
What unit were you with doing that?
The 199th Light Infantry Brigade. That was the only infantry brigade over there. And it was pretty small. It's pretty small. We had our own aviation outfit, and a company that supported us with helicopters, with medevacs and so forth, and but we were pretty small compared to like the 1st Cav or the 9th Infantry Division or some of those others. We were pretty small.
About the food?
Food, sea rations, mostly. Mostly we ate sea rations, and they were pretty good. But I had like peanut butter and jelly for breakfast every morning, and I remember one good meal that I like it's called beans and meatballs. There's like lima beans and with meatballs in there instead of bean and weenies, and that was pretty good. But we and probably once a week we'd get a hot meal flown to us, depending on what we were doing and what was going on. And there's some outfits like the 1st Cav, they got 2 hot meals a day. They got breakfast and supper every day. So they got fun, but they had like 400 or 500 helicopters, and they had ways to get stuff to them. And but it was you get used to those sea rations were really actually I thought were pretty good.
You'll trade very often?
I'm sorry. You have to say up my ears a little bit.
That's okay. You'll trade? Trade rations or trade?
Oh, absolutely. We did it all the time. Sure did. Yeah. That's amazing. I get to talk about this and get to thinking about it. It was really something. But I got down to probably 150 pounds. But back to your question earlier about the funny thing, there was a lot of fun things happened, and one thing, it was kind of funny, but it wasn't. But Jan Scruggs, my buddy from that did the wall in Washington, he was 19 years old. He just turned 19 years old when he got there, and mama, he was from Baltimore. I think it was Baltimore, and his mama put an ad in the paper, something my son's in Vietnam by himself. Please write him a letter, a note, or some kind of correspond with him some way, and they did, and then mail call would come in, and he'd get 25, 30 pieces of mail. And everybody was just jealous as hell of him because he getting so much mail. and he would respond to all of them. And I can remember seeing him move out on patrol, and we'd take a break for lunch, and he'd pull out a letter and start reading it. So a note. that was funny. That was.
When did you first meet Jan?
I'm sorry.
When did you first meet Jan?
In April 1969. When he joined my platoon, he was in my platoon, and that was in April. Let's see, and he had just turned. His birthday and mine are real close together in March. He just turned 19, and that was in that was in April when he joined us early on, and then in May the 28th, he and I almost got killed together in a scrap, for lack of a better word for it. And but I was lucky, and I didn't get hurt very bad. And he did. He almost died from it.
What happened?
It was like a RPG. We got ambushed, and we were on the tail end of the column. And the column was made of probably 100 people, and this RPG went right toward where we were at, and just lucky. I was closest to the explosion. I was closest to it, but I got less damage from it, and he got a lot of damage. And this guy, a guy named Smith from Chicago, got a whole lot of damage on his shoulder and a lot of damage. He got sent home, but in Jan's case, he didn't get sent home. They sent him to Cameron Bay to recuperate for 6 weeks, and I can remember he came back, and he came back, and I said, "What are you doing back? I thought I sent you home." He said, "No, they passed me up to send me back," and they did that to some people, and depending on the extent of their wounds, and he stayed the rest of his tour there with us.
And you saved his life in Vietnam, is that correct?
Yeah, that was doing that little deal there in May the 28th, but that was that I don't really like to talk about it. It was pretty intense, and like I said, it was a long time ago. It was 55, 56 years ago. It seemed like it was last week, but anyway. It's but this one guy, and I'll say this, I'll brag about it a little bit. This one guy, Smith, that got hit from that explosion, he didn't even know he was hurt. He looked at his shoulder and saw that blood, and he panicked. He jumped up and ran back out in the woods, back out in the jungle, and I went after him and literally tackled him and brought him down, and then one of the Chu Hoys, one of those Vietnamese scouts that was with us, helped me bring him back and got him to a helicopter and got him out of there. But that was something else.
I'm curious about. We've got a couple questions in here. I wanted to hit because, you talk about being a platoon sergeant doing effectively a platoon leader's job.
Yeah.
What was your leadership approach? How did you think about being a leader in a situation?
But my concern was my concern was to keep safe everybody that was with me and around me, keep safe, and we didn't think about medals and all this kind of crap. I was concentrating on my mission was to get out of there alive, and everybody that was with me alive and not hurt. And that was just my state of mind.
Do you stay connected with many of the people you served with?
I'm sorry.
Did you stay connected with many of the people you served with after the war?
A few. I've had a couple. Let's see, two or three of them down here visiting. One lived in Washington area, one Miami, and I had some contact with some of them. Not many, but a few, and
what did you all talk about? Did you talk about after? I mean, you mentioned earlier kind of the ever-present sort of threat of being, waking up in the morning and not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
How did you all think about after the war? Did you talk a lot about what was going to?
No, over there we didn't talk. I mean, most everybody's mindset was to be safe, and when I got back from Vietnam, and I didn't tell anybody what we did over there because they wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't believe some of the stories I'd tell them, and so I did, and they wasn't that interested at the time. This was 1970, and but over there we didn't talk that much about getting hurt or getting killed. It was mostly thought about survival, so to speak.
Did you communicate with family while you were over there?
With through the mail. We didn't have the internet then, and we didn't have the smartphones like they do now. I understand they have smartphones when they're overseas and so forth, but we communicate through mail, and it was always a big thing to get something from the mail. Even if it was just even if it was just junk, but if it was anything that comes from the world, that's what we call this over here, the world. And we were down there on that side, and just getting something from the world was really important to us. And they had a good mail system. I mean, you could mail something over there, and it'd be in less than 5 days. We'd have it out in the jungle. It's pretty amazing.
Who did you communicate with?
Sir?
Who did you write to or get letters from the most?
Well, my mama used to write me, and some friends around here, and and also would send me a newspaper, a local newspaper, so I could read up, and then one guy was from in our mortar section. He was from Tallahassee, and he got a Tallahassee Democrat, and he used to let me read his Democrat now and then.
Did you have a girlfriend or anyone back home?
Not at the time I didn't. No, I didn't. And those guys, and I'll say this, those guys that were over there that were married, they had a tough time. I mean, mentally, because it was preying on their mind so much about getting hurt. It was awful.
Was that something you dealt with kind of on a personal level as somebody in a position of leadership? If you have a soldier who's struggling with wife or child back home and worried about that?
Yeah, well, I didn't have a wife back home. I didn't have a girlfriend back home, so it didn't. But
Yeah, as a person in a position of leadership, for people who did, is that something you've talked with people about?
Well, yeah, just some, yeah, but I did talk to some of them about that and consoled them and but it was I tell you, while we're talking about this, it brings back a lot of memories of things I haven't thought about in years. uh, uh, but there was a lot of close calls, a lot of, I'd say, close calls where people could have gotten hurt, but they didn't get hurt, and that sort of thing. Uh, well, these weapons of war are so dangerous. It's so dangerous that there's so many dangers involved with just a hand grenade. For example, a hand grenade, I carried them for a while, but I didn't carry them the last half I was there because one afternoon late we were leaving the next day, and we were getting rid of our ammo, our hand grenades and so forth, and we were throwing them out in this river, exploding them just to get rid of them. And I can remember throwing one, it went about, I don't know, 50 feet down here, and it made a click sound. And that just scared the hell out of me. And I didn't, it didn't go off. It went on down, went up off it's supposed to. But there was a fellow from, I didn't know him, but from one of our sister companies, Charlie Company, that the hand grenade went off. He had strapped on it, called a limb or something, pulled a safety pin out and went off and killed him. So the point is those weapons of war are so dangerous. There's so many dangers involved. You just had to be on your guard all the time to keep something accidentally from happening.
Why were you getting rid of them? I didn't pick up on that when you were.
We just lighten up our load.
Okay.
We shoot mortars, hand grenades, things like that. Just get rid of them. But
so what was it like coming back? What was your homecoming like?
It was good. Around there, I didn't have any. Did nobody spit on me or anything like that. It was like, well, welcome back. You're back. It's good to see you. And blah blah blah. I mean, it wasn't like some of these bigger cities and places like New York, Atlanta, and California that they were spitting on veterans and degrading veterans. I mean, they were they would. I mean, we were only there because Uncle Sam said we want you there. We weren't there by any choice. We were there because we were ordered there.
Yeah, what was
that part of the way way veterans were treated was pretty lousy, I thought.
And did you know anybody who experienced that?
No, I don't. Just on TV and in the news and so forth.
Yeah. What was the process of homecoming like? I'd imagine they shipped you probably to a base or something here, and then you got on a bus, or how did that look?
You mean coming back?
Yeah.
Well, I just got. We flew into Oakland, California, and for our process when we got back from Vietnam, they flew us on a commercial airline. I forget who it was, and we flew nonstop to Vietnam to Oakland, and it was there about 3 days. About 3 days and 3 nights, and out processing. It depends if you were staying in the Army, you didn't have to stay about 1 day. If you were getting out like I was, it took 3 days, and they gave us a steak supper, and of course everybody was so tired. I don't think they enjoyed it. but that was interesting. And then they gave us a uniform to wear back. As a matter of fact, I've still got mine, but I can remember coming back on a plane, and I think it was in Texas. Back then, the planes would like leave California and stop in Dallas, and then stop in New Orleans, and then Panama City or Tallahassee. And I can remember on the plane talking to this older gentleman that was in the oil business, and he offered me a job, and that was really interesting.
So you get back to Apalachicola, and then what was next for you?
Well, I had a job at St. Joe at the paper mill, and I had ideas of getting in business for myself, and that was probably about 6 months after I got back. I did get in business, and but I was still working at the paper mill, and it was a business of repairing outboard motors and marine type industry, and I had a partner, and he was working full time, and I was working, well, I guess you'd call it half time, and then still working in the paper mill, and then when I got Bay City, which was 1974, and I had to quit the mill because this was a full-time endeavor. It's a full-time job.
What was that adjustment like, especially those first couple months?
Wasn't bad. Wasn't bad. I was I don't remember anything bad about it.
So then going into business for yourself, we're sitting in your restaurant. Is that tell me about that process of going into business for yourself?
It took many years. I've had this place for 50 years. 51 years is coming in April, and it took many years. This place is much different than it was 50 years ago.
And at this point, are you still in touch with Jan Scruggs and other friends of yours from Vietnam?
I do. I talked to Jan Scruggs earlier. I think you talked to him a little bit, and
but this has been continuous. Like since you got back, you stayed in touch pretty much immediately after coming back, or
that's right.
While you didn't stay.
That's right. Well, since I saw him on TV that night and he was doing the wall, since then we've been in close contact ever since.
Okay. And that was, what year was that?
That was 1982.
1982. Well, how was that? You're sitting watching TV and there's
I was watching TV, and then the blurb came on about the news coming up and said Jan Scruggs, and I said I know that guy, who was in my platoon in Vietnam. Man, that was so weird. And then I spent the next day, probably half the day, on the telephone trying to find, because I wasn't for sure the name of his organization. And I finally tracked him down, and then he invited me to, this was March of 82, or February. He invited me to come up to Washington. He told me what he was planning on doing, and invited me to come up and represent Florida in the groundbreaking of the memorial, and I did, and that was really interesting. First time I'd ever been to Washington before, and then later that year in November, I went back up there for the dedication, and in the meantime, I was elected as a local county commissioner in September, and I went back up there. They were still building it in October, just looking at it, and
what did you think of his idea before it was a reality? What did you?
Well, nobody thought it was going to be as big of a deal, but the day it was dedicated, Jimmy, it was I think the word the number they used was 250,000 people there.
Wow.
I mean, it was just amazing. And this one cab driver told me, he said that's the most people he's seen in Washington D.C. since Kennedy's funeral. And it was just amazing. I mean, people from there from all over the country, from California, just everywhere, and it's just phenomenal. I had took off the notoriety of what it was and what it was stood for, and still is today. It's just incredible. It's just amazing.
What did that feel like to see all those people? And I mean, you described that feeling.
That was a bunch of us 30-some-year-olds and from Vietnam, and it was quite an it's hard to explain it, but that was quite an experience.
What about the wall itself? The first time you saw the memorial, the wall came. Remind me on this. The wall came first, and then the Three Soldiers Monument was later.
2 years later.
2 years later.
And the reason about the statue, there was a lot of controversy about the design of the wall. I mean, some people literally tried to kill the project before Jan got going. I mean, they were just adamant. They were just totally opposed to it, and
wow.
it just who knows why, but they were opposed to it, and so Jan met with them. This was one group of their veterans, and they said, "What do y'all want to do?" And they said, "We want a statue." And Jan said, "Okay, you can have a statue," and it was 2 years later. They said they got this guy Frederick Hart, who did ours, to create it, design it, and create it, and the rest is. I was there when it was unveiled in '84. I went up for that. Let's see. I forget who was there, but anyway, it was. But that's how the statue came about, and but the statue wasn't part of the design of the walls. Anyway, it's
I'm still curious about. I'm just thinking as we're having this conversation, you talk about coming back home and not really talking about the war, and a lot of people not asking. And now you're in D.C. with 250,000 people and these monuments being unveiled. I mean, what was that like? That seems like a huge juxtaposition.
It's hard to explain to you, but I'll see people today. If I'm in Tallahassee and they got a cap on, it said I could tell that they were in Vietnam. And I asked them, what outfit were you in? And what year? It's just something I just do. But in 1970, I'd say the Vietnam veterans were not a very popular lot of people. I mean, it was just.
Did it feel good to have that honor of a monument? Maybe you feel a little bit belated.
I do now, and the main thrust behind my doing this was to honor the local veterans. And in this case, the local Chamber of Commerce, blah blah blah, City Hall, whatever. I don't get much recognition out of them. I think what you're doing to the state of Florida is going to help create some awareness the wall of what we got here, because what we have here is a very unique statue, and it's made in the same using the same molds in the same foundry as the one in Washington D.C. I mean, it's just incredible, and and some of the members that worked on the foundry worked on our sculpture. There's this one lady said her mama worked on the one in Washington in 1984.
Wow.
So
yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit for context. I mean, we have up here in Apalachicola the same architect. The same statue is in D.C. or Three Soldiers Monument. Where's that located?
I'm sorry.
Where is that located?
In Apalachicola.
So the Veterans Memorial Park, right?
Yeah, Market Street. Market. I think it's 230 Market Street is the address. But
part of bringing that out here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I raised the money. It took me 7 years to raise the money for it, and then during that 7 years, I almost didn't complete it because it was so difficult to raise that kind of money, and but I stuck with it, and it happened. I caused it to happen, and
so when did that start?
Yeah.
When did that start? When did you decide to do that? When did you start raising money?
That was 7 years prior to that. That'd been what, in 2001, around 2001 when it started, and we started out raising money, and we didn't have a not-for-profit organization at the time, and we didn't have the designation from the IRS, and my buddies, Jan Scruggs and his people in Washington told me, said, you can use ours as where people can deduct the donation. Say somebody gives $1,000 and they want to take it off, you have to have this designation from the IRS to allow you to do that. And we didn't have it. And this cousin of mine who's a CPA got her involved with filling out the forms to submit to IRS to get our designation. And the guys from Washington told me, Jan Scruggs, people said, it's going to probably take you a year, maybe 2 years to get this designation. And I said, really? Because I haven't done anything like this before. And she sent it up, and about a month later, we got her designation.
Nice.
We got a letter from the IRS and the number and so forth. And so the only thing we could figure was that whoever got that application was a Vietnam veteran and was sympathetic with what we were trying to do, and it sailed on through.
You had a lot of support from Vietnam veterans. I mean, FedEx, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, FedEx brought the statue to it because you see the picture up here of the statue. That's in New York where that picture was taken, and it had to be trucked. That's a long way from here, Long Island, New York, to here, and Fred Smith, who's the president, the guy that started FedEx, he took it on himself to have the ship down here. It was the only thing on this truck. That's hard to picture. I mean, hard to imagine, but they had this one truck, one FedEx truck, and a big truck, and all they had was just that statue, all the way from New York down to here.
And you said they did that pro bono, right?
Pro bono, yeah. That was amazing. That was truly amazing.
So Fred Smith was a Vietnam veteran?
Yeah. Fred Smith is, and he after Vietnam he started FedEx, and you know how big that is now. It's huge. But he's been he's been real active in veterans affairs. Like I said, he gave my friend Jan Scruggs a bunch of money for the Vietnam Wall in Washington.
What was the reception like here, particularly among local veterans, but the community at large?
I would say it was real good. We had probably 3,500 people that day at the dedication, and it was real good. I'm real happy with that.
And that was that important in the fundraising process as well?
I'm sorry.
Was that important for fundraising as well?
Well, the fundraising was a little bit more to be desired, but I managed to pull it to do it.
What started that for you? What gave you the idea? What made you say I want to do this here?
Go Jan Scruggs told me about it. And asked me if I wanted to do it and be the first one. I said, well, let me think about it, and I'll get back with you in a week or so. And I talked to some friends of mine. One of them was a lawyer named Nick Yonklis, and one of them was my cousin Desma, and people like Mark Currington, who was a county planner, and real good bean counter, if you would, taking care of business. And I got these guys together, and they said, let's go for it. And I said, so then I called Jan, told him, I said, let's try it. Let's do it. And we did. And we were successful. It's just amazing.
And he came down here for the dedication, right?
He did. He and Lindy Hart both were here. Lindy Hart was the widow of Frederick Hart, who died in 1999, the guy that created the statue. And Frederick Hart was, I would say he was like the Michelangelo of today. I mean, he was that good because the National Cathedral in Washington, in the front of it, in the front door, there's a marble thing that he did up there, a marble sculpture that he did of creation. And so he was something else. And as a matter of fact, when they were here, when Lindy Hart was here, she gave me I've got at the house a book of his work. It's like a big textbook, and I've looked through it before, and I thought, how in the world does this guy ever sleep? I mean, when did he find time to sleep? All the stuff he created, because he worked in the Vatican and in Europe, and he's just amazed what he did.
Wow. So what was the process of selecting him for the statue? Did Jan pick him personally? Was that?
Yeah, that Jan, I never met him, Frederick Hart. I wish I had him, but I didn't. Jan put it together. Just see the way it is Jan and Lindy Hart own 50% copyrights in the statue of the one in Washington, and copyright for any reproduced. Now the wall is I guess it's copyrighted. It belongs to the Park Service. I got a feeling that's what it is, but anyway, so what else we got? I'm got to get time for lunch myself.
Yeah, we can start wrapping up. Just got a couple. We'll go through them kind of quickly.
Okay.
I don't know. I had one. I lost it. Where'd it go? I had something I really wanted to ask you. I lost it. Oh, I remember. Maybe I'm not ready for lunch too. I wanted to ask about your involvement in. I mean, obviously, through the monument, you're involved in veterans, activities. What other organizations are you part of? American Legion?
American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars. Yeah, better see the BVMF, Veterans of Foreign Wars and American Legion.
Gotcha. And then you run the Three Soldiers nonprofit. What's the name of the nonprofit you run for the
Three Servicemen Statue South.
Three Servicemen Statue South?
Yeah, it's it's just quite a story. Quite a story behind all of this, and the fact that my buddy Jan Scruggs came up with the idea of doing the thing in Washington, and how popular it is just amazing. I'll tell you one little story about that. After it was dedicated, it was probably 1983. Jan called me up and was talking. He said, strangest thing is happening. We don't know how to deal with it. I said, what is it? He said, people are leaving stuff at the memorial. They're leaving mementos. They're leaving letters. They're leaving medals, pictures, and we don't know what to do with it. So then they got the idea of, they got the Park Service to start collecting this stuff up and putting it in a warehouse. And I've seen it. I've been up there and see it's in a warehouse, and just phenomenal. I mean, somebody left a motorcycle there.
Wow.
I don't know what size it was, but people leaving all kinds of stuff. And you go there today, I guarantee you, today there'd be a lot of letters and flowers, and there'd be things up there today. And every day they have to go by and collect all that stuff. And they got it in a warehouse in Atlanta. In Washington, and when I was up there looking at it a few years ago, they were in the process of cataloging all of it and putting in some kind of order. So I don't know how that come about.
Well, what are some things that you want people in general, or particularly young people, to remember or understand from your story about Vietnam veterans, about veterans in general?
I think it's real important to get to understand history, whether you liked it or not. Vietnam. The fact is that there's guys that were over there. We were there not because we wanted to be there, but we were there because our government said we would be, asked us to be there. And I think that the real legacy needs to be remembering World War II. Vietnam, and like I was telling you earlier, this area has a lot of history, a lot of military history. I mean, right here, there's the airport. It was built in 42, I think, and it's a big 5,000 foot runways with taxiways. I mean, it's phenomenal. And it was built. It was part of an annex from Tyndall Field in Panama City, and it was that. There was Camp Gordon Johnston over on the east end of the county, training for Normandy, and for D-Day, and just all kind of things that happened around here. During Vietnam, there was a helicopter out there from Fort Rooker. They here for about 10 years, and they had a firing range in the Gulf, and they would test firing new weapons and gunships and so forth. And just a lot of history about a lot of veterans history around here. It needs to be preserved for future generations to learn, to know who's here.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Great. Yeah, I think that's an excellent message for future generations. Is there anything in this interview that we haven't covered that you would like to say?
there's just a lot of history around here. But one thing I will say is that they had this fellow here died a couple of years ago. His name was Powell Rivers, and he was the clerk of the court. And he also taught me Americanism versus communism in high school. And he was in the Navy, and somehow or other, him and he was in Pensacola at the naval school over there, and as an instructor. And somehow or another, him and Neil Armstrong got to be big buddies. Neil Armstrong that went to the moon, and I had a letter that that Neil Armstrong wrote him in 1969, in September '69, after he got back from the moon, telling me a little bit about it. But I thought that's remarkable. It's a little town like this, and somebody of that statue is. Anyway, I want to plug him a little bit. He was a good guy.
That's cool. It's a small world.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does it for me. Any kind of final message you'd like to read?
Jerry, I don't have anything. It's just we want to preserve some history and make sure that future generations can learn about it, can learn from it, and that's what. And then this particular statue will be there. It should be there for thousands of years. It should be. That's about. I feel like I'm in Vietnam today.
Why do you say that?
Huh? I said I feel like I've been to Vietnam today thinking about all this stuff. All right, Jeremy.
All right. Well,
I can't think of anything else.
I'll thank you for your time, then, and thank you for your service.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you, buddy.